Hello everyone, in this video we are going to be exploring an abandoned mall in the middle of the demolition process. This is the Phillipsburg Mall in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. It opened up in 1989 and it was popular in the 90s, but by the mid-2000s it was a dead mall. In early 2020, the mall closed permanently and sat abandoned until demolition began during the summer of 2024. In this video, we are going to explore what remains of the Phillipsburg Mall. I'm going to share with you some of my personal memories of this mall, and stick around to the end because I have some footage of the mall when it was still in operation. So when I got here on this day, only a third of the mall was still left standing. It was a very sad and surreal experience, standing on the floor tile of a mall that I used to shop at and just seeing all these piles of rubble surrounding me that used to be the stores where I used to go and hang out and shop. Standing next to all this twisted metal and looking into the empty shell of the mall, it just felt like something out of an apocalyptic movie. Heading inside, this first store that we're going to see is an old GNC vitamin shop. When this mall closed, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and they sort of just shut down and never reopened. So a lot of stuff was just left behind, and we can see all the shelving units still in this store. And there were also people coming in and vandalizing the mall, so we'll see evidence of that as well. Here we can see some of the old GNC signage still hanging up. I noticed this on the floor. This is really cool. It's a mixing board. It must have been used for a PA unit, and it has the old Radio Shack logo on it. The Phillipsburg Mall holds a special place in my heart. It was the first dead mall that I ever visited. It was the place that really sparked my interest in the topic. I came here a few times as a child, and I have some very faint memories of it. I recall that at one point there was a fountain and a food court that had these historical murals painted on the walls. Around 2011-2012, I had a job in the town of Phillipsburg, and I would come to the mall and just take a little walk around after my shifts. And it was eerie to see how dead it was, but it was also just so enchanting to see a place frozen in time. It really felt like I was taking a step back into the 90s. And from there, my fascination just kept growing, and I started exploring malls and documenting them, and here I am today. If we look up above here at the skylight, we can see these old neon light tubes. They used to shine bright blue, but sadly they will never shine again. And I really appreciate just how much color there was in this mall. All the light blue and pink. You don't see that anymore. Everything's just white nowadays. Here we have these stock photos of all these smiling, happy shoppers. It's kind of creepy to see something like that when you're inside this dead, derelict building. Then down here we can see what used to be one of the entrances to the mall. Inside here looks like an unfinished store space that they were using for storing stuff. We can see some trash cans, and over here we can see this old display case. This is pretty neat. And this must have been a really old one because I remember seeing these in the malls when I was a kid, long time ago. Here we have an old shoe department store. Let's go inside and check that out. I can distinctly remember coming to this store and buying a pair of shoes for my job back when I worked in this town. And it's a pretty cool looking store. We have this multicolored tile, which is a very old school feature. And just all around the store we have all this old track lighting, which is just very cool to see, because that's something that's being removed from most places nowadays. So this one was an old skate shop. I forget which one exactly, but we can see the ceiling starting to cave in. Just really crazy sight, this place. We can see an old Vans logo on the back wall there, and over here it looks like some vandals took paint and threw it against the mirror. Very cool, guys. This is a former Old Navy, which they later turned into a roller derby arena, which in my opinion is a really great way to use an empty mall space. And here we can just look out into the sky, just right through the side of the building. Pretty insane sight, if I do say so. And I noticed all these old fire extinguishers in these shopping carts. I guess the work crews must have put them there to keep them from exploding while they were tearing the building apart. So now we're going to go inside the only anchor space that was still left standing at this mall. This used to be a JCPenney and was later turned into a Black Rose Antique Center. And just look at that customer service counter still standing. That is absolutely wild to see that in the middle of all this wreckage around it. And just look at this. This is insane, where the ceiling has collapsed from the demolition. Just standing inside a mall store with the roof all collapsed in, it just felt like something out of a disaster movie. And so Black Rose Antiques was one of those antique malls where they just set up all these little vendor booths in the old store space. All of these partition walls that we're seeing here, they were all just different vendors selling collectibles, antiques, you name it, all kinds of cool stuff. And when this mall was still open, I would come here and just spend hours walking around and just treasure hunting and looking at all the cool stuff they had. It was the kind of place where you would feel like you're getting lost, which is what you see me doing in the video right now. Something about the way these rays of sunlight are just shining through into this empty mall, it's just really beautiful. As I walked through this section, I was starting to feel like I was trapped in the back rooms. This was sort of an unplanned exploration, so I did not bring a powerful flashlight with me, so I just kind of had to make do with my cell phone light, so it gets very dark in this portion of the video. In this section, we can see quite a lot of stuff left behind, and we can also see where some idiots decided it would be cool to start smashing stuff. Not to go on a rant, but just because something's abandoned doesn't give you the right to destroy it. And over here we can see a big pile of cardboard boxes left behind. And look at that cool little mouse down there. And there was some cool stuff left behind here, and as much as I would have loved to have rescued some of it, it just wasn't something that was really possible for me to do. We can see some VHS tapes here. I know some people who would be sad to see those left behind. It's a shame, but there's not much I could have really done about it. It was around this point that it started getting very hard for me to see where I was going, so I started making my way out of here. And so I had to say my sad final goodbyes to a place that had really come to mean a lot to me. When we envision the places that we've visited in the past, they hold sort of a permanence, but when you come and see them in literal piles of rubble, it's just kind of mind-blowing. I'm really glad I came and made this final exploration. It feels like I was able to finally gain closure on losing a place that I really loved. It really is true that nothing lasts forever, so it's very important to go and capture the places that you care about. Take pictures, take video. It's important, so please do it if you're able to. So I hope you enjoyed this final trip to the Phillipsburg Mall, but don't go anywhere yet, because we're going to see some footage I took of this mall when it was still open. This is from back in summer of 2019, and it was my first attempt at ever filming a mall. Alrighty, here we are, back in time. The mall is still open, and would you look at that, the neon lights are still on and shining brightly above us. Feels really good to see that again, doesn't it? Down at the end here used to be the Sears anchor, and just over here we're gonna see the infamous creepy star and moon faces at the pizza place. Just look at how creepy and weird these faces are. Now there is a second version of these that still exists at the Laurel Mall in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Stop and check them out if you're ever out that way. And down this way was the old Sears, and the Sears actually closed and the building was demolished before the mall itself closed in 2020. Just look at that beautiful skylight. Just the sight of that makes me feel happy again. On the left-hand side, you can see a pink and blue store. That used to be a Dollar Tree. And now I don't remember what this store was originally, but I know towards the end it was used as one of those calendar and games stores that you see pop up in malls. And here we can see those amazing neon lights again. I really wish I took more video of this mall when I had the chance, but it wasn't something I really knew how to do at the time. And as I said earlier in the video, a visit to this mall really did feel like a step back in time. As you can see, it's very old school in here. Okay, and let's take a peek at some of the stores here. This was an old Suncoast motion picture company, and you'll notice that grid ceiling up top there, and those studio lights. How cool is that? And over here was Deb Women's Clothing Store, and look at that mirrored storefront. This store looks like it never left the 80s. It is so cool looking in here. Just look at all that pink carpet and track lighting. Very old school. And now up here on the left, the store with the red balls and the multicolored tile, that was an old KB Toys, a store I'm sure many of us have fond memories of. And after KB Toys closed, it became a kitchen supply store. Over here was a 90s style Foot Locker, and this was a Gold's Gym, which was really the only thing that stayed active in the mall in its later years. And just check out these benches and that old customer service kiosk still there. That's so cool. Now, if you look at the stores on the right, you'll notice an old EB Games and an Asian Gifts that used to be a store called Trade Secret. I just really love the way the light from the skylights comes down on these plants. It's just so beautiful. What I wouldn't give just to be able to spend another afternoon here. And here we can see that beautiful skylight again with the neon lights surrounding it. And down at the end of this hallway, we have the entrance to the former Bon-Ton. And much like the Sears, this store closed before the mall itself closed and the building was demolished. This is just a cozy little spot right here. And up ahead is Asian Gifts, which was one of those stores like East meets West that sells like figurines and incense and stuff like that. On the left, next to the Bath & Body Works, you'll see a store that has what looks like metal bars on top. That used to be a Gadzooks. And you've probably noticed all these buckets on the floor. They definitely had some roof problems towards the end. So it might be a little tough to see, but on the left, there's a record store known as Spin Me Round. And they're still open. They moved to the Palmer Mall just across the border in Pennsylvania. Go check them out. They're a really great store. And this was the roller derby that we saw earlier in the video. Really wild to see it here versus how it ended up. And over here we can see the Black Rose Antiques in the former JCPenney. So anyway, this is where I'm going to end the video. I hope you had a good time exploring the Phillipsburg Mall one final time with me, and as sad as I am that it's gone, I'm happy I was at least able to capture as much of it as I could and share it with people in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.